Good afternoon and welcome to another episode of Living Lives. Today in my diffuser, I have ginger, and ginger is the oil of empowerment, and it helps us hold no reservations. And this oil has a purpose and will fulfill it. It powerfully persuades individuals to be fully present and participate in life. It teaches that to be successful in life, one must be wholly committed to it. And I think it's perfect for my guest today because she is committed to helping people become more committed to what they do in their lives, in their work, and connect with people that way. Her name is Santana Mccarthy, and she's an entrepreneur, social media creator, and owner of the Affinity Films. She started her company by working for free and building valuable relationships with local companies. Now she works with small to mid-sized companies to up their social media game on TikTok, Instagram, and YouTube. Welcome, Santana.
Thank you. Thank you for having me on the show.
It's great to have you here. So tell us how you got started in this.
Yeah, so I am originally from West Virginia, and I moved to New Hampshire about 5-6 years ago. And I started working at an aerospace company in New Hampshire. I didn't have a degree. I didn't have anything like that. I was just, looking for a job. And I worked there for a few years, and I just realized I didn't really want to do it anymore. And so after kind of realizing that, I was like, okay, well, what do I want to do? What's my passion? Where do I want to go in my life? And I don't want to be doing this forever, And I went to this CrossFit gym and I said, hey, are you guys looking for videography? And I said, I'll do it for free. I just want to learn. I didn't know what I was doing in videography at all. I was terrible at it. And if you look at my first videos, oh my God, what is that? Yeah, now we know why you did it for free. So anyways, and I started working with them, and I worked for them for like 1.5 years and just helped them. And I got better at my skill. And then eventually I was able to sell it to other companies and show them that video is really important to their social media, Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. TikTok wasn't around, of course, when I first started, but now it's a major part of what I do. So that's how I got started, and that's kind of the beginning of that story.
Do you just create the video and let them post, or do you post as well for people?
It depends on the client. So Some people like to have that control, and so if they want to have that control, that's fine. Some people just don't have the time to sit there and post. So if they need my help with that, then I provide that service, and if they don't, then I just create the videos and send them over.
What's your favorite type of video to create?
That is a good question. Usually something that tells a story, like something that I can, it doesn't matter if it's CrossFit or if it's a dealership, but as long as there's a story and there's a meaning behind what I'm doing.
Okay.
And really building that, like the relationship with that person. So as long as I can build a long-term relationship, those are like my favorite type of videos to make, is something that's going to provide the viewer with emotion and make them feel something.
Okay. I know that's really important. Stories we all have a story, and telling our stories is sometimes challenging for people. And there's always something that I learn when I see a good story that I can take and apply to my life, or to, I can take a piece of what I see or what I hear and relate to it. So, creating stories and that connection that way is really important.
Right. Yeah.
So what, like if you were to work with a new client, what kinds of things do you ask them to get started?
Yeah. So first I say, what's your story? How'd you get started in your business? So I want to learn their backstory, especially if I'm working with an older client. A lot of people where I'm from, they've owned their company for years. And so they worked really, really hard to get where they are. And so that's the first thing I usually ask them. I say, how'd you get here? Because you were 20 years old when you started and you had a tiny little store, and now you have, 6 dealerships. So like, how did that start? So that's one of the first questions I ask them. I ask them, what do you want to get out of this? If by the end of the time I'm working with you, what's going to make you satisfied with the work I give you? And those are probably the 2 most important questions that I start with.
Okay. What's the most unusual video you've done?
What's the most unusual video I've done? Probably, Taylor, but that's another story. The girl you did a podcast with yesterday. That was the most unusual, and she wants to tell you that story. She can, but
okay.
Very, very interesting. Yeah. But besides that, though, I'll think of another one. I went to, actually, this past weekend, I was in Hollywood, and I got to film with a very good entrepreneur, really, he was the president of marketing for Tide and a couple other big names. And he runs his own companies now. So that was probably the most interesting thing I was able to do. And I just got back, but that was like super fun. And it was different for me. It was a new experience. So, and I got to connect with a lot of really cool people there. So that was probably the most like fun videography I've gotten to do.
Okay. What type of cameras do you use? Do you just
Yeah, so I have a Nikon, but recently I just upgraded to the Sony A7 III, and I've had my eye on that camera for a long time, and I finally made the jump. I'm the type of person, I like to buy like the best, most inexpensive camera, and this time I said no. I have to make the jump to what I really want. So I finally bought the camera that I wanted.
Okay. Yeah.
I'm excited about that.
What type of shoots do you have coming up?
So all my clients are monthly based. So I work with the same clients every single month. So the LA one, that was the most recent one, but now I have just my regular clients I'll work with for the rest of the month. And then next month, sometimes I get scragglers and they're like, hey, can you come do this shoot? But I work with this guy in New Hampshire. He sells Gunpla model kits. And then I'm going to the dealership tomorrow. So now I'm just the end of the month. So now it's just working with my regular clients. And I have a trucking company out in Texas that I do some work for too. So
which company?
It's called PDQ America. It's a trucking company.
My cousin owns a trucking company in Texas. That's the only reason I asked.
That's crazy.
It's not his company. So.
I feel like there's a lot now down there just because, the logistics is getting a little crazy. So
yeah, I was talking with him last night, and it's definitely, logistics is definitely really crazy right now with the cost of it all, and finding drivers, and
that's their biggest issue is finding drivers.
Yeah. And he deals with transporting oil and things like that. So he can't take a newbie and train them. He has to have experience. So it's even harder for him. But anyway, that's beside the point. So, so if you were to say, come and work with me, what do you think you would do? Where would you want to start if we were to work together?
Yeah, I mean, I'd start where you're most comfortable, right? You're already doing the podcast. So I'd say, okay, you're already doing this podcast. Let's take this video. Let's cut it up. I make these templates for Instagram and TikTok and Facebook. And then I'd get you on a schedule, kind of like with the trucking company, they do a podcast. So I cut up all the material for them. I send it to them the first of the month. I would say, okay, here's 20 pieces of content for Instagram for you to post.
Okay.
And so I usually start where you're most comfortable, and then we grow from there. If you want to do more, I always like to start with a company story. So that's one of the first videos I'll do with a client. So that and your podcast, but the podcast would be the main piece of content. Like everything that would be created from that, and then it would drive to the podcast.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's the reason I asked that is because somebody just told me last week that I should take my webcasts and A, turn them into a podcast, and B, chop them up and use them on social media. So
they're exactly right. That's exactly what you should do.
See, now I met somebody who can do that. Yeah. See, it's all these connections that we have. It's all about making connections. And when you take what you do and help people make connections with their clients and with each other and with their ongoing relationships, that's to me, like I said to you beforehand, I'm all about connection. So adventures and connection. If you're going on an adventure and you want to make a connection, I'm right there. So it's definitely part of my brand and what I like to do. And I'm glad that we were able to to hook up here and learn a little bit about how you go about doing that. Is there anything else that you would do that would be interesting to hear about? Like what's the next step if you were to take this podcast, this webcast, let's say, and do something with it? How would you start?
Yeah, so I would watch them and I look for like the best parts in the podcast. Someone says something, you say something that's good. And one of the most important things is trying to make the right title for a video. Okay. So you see them on Instagram and you have to listen to it and say, okay, what's going to make the viewer stop and do something, so that you have to watch. You could watch like an hour and then you watch it again because you go, okay, there's more. Like, what else can I do with it? So yeah, that's where we start. The first thing is just really listening to what's being said, and then how do we make good content out of it.
Excuse me. So you talked about bringing out the emotion and backstories and feeling. What tools do you use to get to the emotion and the feeling part of what you create?
Sometimes I'll look for. So recently, actually, I was in the dealership and there was this older gentleman, and he was the owner of all the places, and he had a picture that his daughter had drawn, and he had it framed, with all of his awards that he had. He had a ton of awards, and his daughter's picture was right there in the center. And so I said, "Oh, who's that? Who drew that?" And he goes, "Oh, that was my daughter 10 years ago. She drew that when she was really little." And so then he starts talking about his daughter, right? And then now you can probe. Now you can ask more questions about like his family and where he's from, and then you get like his story and where he came from. And so I always try to like find something. Usually whatever a person holds dear in their heart, it's near them, right? It's going to be on the table somewhere. So it's just about being observant to the person and saying, okay, like what do they have near them? Like what are they interested in? And then asking them those type of questions that will get their emotions kind of heightened.
Okay.
It can be hard with a client sometimes because they're all business, right? Mm-hmm. Especially if you've been doing it for 40, 50 years. You're not there to talk about emotions. You're there to get business done, right? And so you kind of have to sneak it in a little. You're like, oh, what's that over there? Oh, that's that's my daughter. Okay, now we can get to the root of what you're trying to do here. It's like, well, why did you start your company? Well, because I want to provide for my family. Oh, because my daughter, because I had a baby, and then it starts the whole story, and then they start getting emotional because they're thinking about their family. So.
Yeah, it all comes back. We talk, in my business, we talk about our why, and our why drives us. It's what we get up for every day and what drives us to move forward in what we're doing. And if you have a good why, it's going to get you through all the rough times when you don't want to get up, you don't want to drive to a meeting, you don't want to teach a class. But if your why is good, that can really help and drive you through. So it's good to hear you talk about finding their why to connect to the feelings and their emotions and their stories.
Right, exactly. That's really what it is trying to find their why.
And a lot of people don't think about their why.
Yes.
You know, that they have it, but they don't, it's not front of mind, and it's not, they might not really be aware of it. And when they're not aware of it, then they sometimes lose sight of it.
Right.
So, it's good to help bring that forward.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah, that's the whole point of really what I do, is to try and bring out those stories and get comfortable with the client too, because there's always going to be some type of wall up, right? So you have to break down that wall with a client and be able to be as comfortable with them so they can be comfortable with the viewer. Because if they can't be comfortable with the videographer and they can't tell their story to the person with the camera, then telling the entire world their story, it's
right,
just not going to happen.
Right. And I've seen people, I've seen videos like that, and they're not inspiring.
Yeah. Just like somebody looking at a wall talking.
Right. There's no connection there.
Right.
And it's back to, my big favorite thing, connection. So that's what I spend a lot of time doing, and helping people connect to, like I said, to one another, to themselves, and to each other. So for me, I love it when people see that. And I have I teach a course. It's called Creating Intention with Essential Oils and Paint. And I see people make connections with the affirmations that they're using in it. And we link the affirmations to a particular oil, and then we get them from an essential oil card deck, actually. And they use the oils in the paint, and then they can connect back to that because they put the intentions on the canvas and then they're painting over it. So it's underneath, so it's hidden, but to them it's there. And they also get a roller ball of the oils to take home with them to bring back that connection and really focus on the intention that is behind it. And I think when we have that, that why and that intention behind what we're doing, it helps us move forward with life in a positive way, and work through any of the issues that we might be having with whatever, whether it's the weather or the business or everything seems to be falling apart. We can, if that why's there, it can still drive us forward and get us through those rough times.
Yeah, absolutely. 100%.
And it's they say never quit on your bad day. If you're going to wait for a good day to quit, and then you probably won't quit.
Right.
Yeah, exactly. So anything else you think that people should know about what you do?
Yeah, I mean, I think the other thing I would say, like if you're like a young entrepreneur, and sometimes it can feel like you're working, and you're never going to get that break, or you're like, oh, what am I actually going to do with my life? And it takes a lot of hard work to build a business.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks good, when you go to the website, that's cool. But no one really sees like the effort that it takes. And so if you're a young entrepreneur and you're like, it's never gonna happen for me, you just got to keep pushing through and keep doing the right things, and doing, the right thing's always the right thing. That's something I like to say. The right thing's always the right thing. As long as you do the right thing and you work hard, and your mind's right, then good things will happen, and you just gotta you gotta keep trucking through.
Sounds like good advice. And your Instagram account is here on the screen for those people who want to follow you or get in touch with you for your services. And any last words before we sign off?
No, I think I'm good.
Okay, so if you want to just hang out in the green room for a second, I'll wrap up the show, and I'll be right back with you. So join us next week. I'm going to be joined by Erica Ruvalcaba, and she likes helping others find their true potential within, which I think is a great thing to look for. And as always, I encourage you all to go out, make a connection, and live your best lives. Follow me on Facebook or YouTube to be notified when we do these lives. And as always, they're every Tuesday at noon. So thank you for joining me this week, and I'll look forward to